Hello and welcome to the second quest of my Eldfall Chronicles campaign of the Obsidian Heart. This time our party of adventurers has to conquer the tunnels beneath the cavern village for the task mage explorer who carries a device to secure an artifact which is inside this column. But to get there, they have to defeat the Colossus that guards the chamber, 2 gargoyles that patrol the tunnel, and 2 golems who stand watch at the intersection of these small tunnel system. For the mission, the environment will be dark, which means each model has only a line of sight within its awareness, and activated and reacting models suffer a -3 modifier when targeting another model outside of half their awareness. Which means basically that, as we can see here, the golem with its agility of 6, the Colossus with its agility of 6, and the gargoyle with its agility of 8, they will most of the time be very short-sighted, but since all of these 3 types of enemy only have melee attacks, they will not suffer much of this. On the other hand, looking at the party, the Academy Expeditioner has an agility of 10, the Task Mage Explorer has an agility of 12, and the Pharaoh's Outrider also has an agility of 12, which means that these models will most of the time suffer a -3 modifier, but actually when they are within the half of their awareness, at least for the Task Mage Explorer and for the Pharaoh's Outrider, they will be within the awareness of the Golem and also of the Colossus to activate. Another special rule for this scenario is that the Colossus will only activate once an opposing model, since one of the party enters the chamber. The gargoyles will move clockwise in a direction to patrol until they see an opposing model until they have an opposing model within line of sight. And the golems will stay stationary also until they have an enemy model within line of sight. In this case, the 6 inches because of their awareness. And as I mentioned, the goal is that the Task Mage Explorer, since she's carrying the device, has to reach the actual artifact to secure it. Once the artifact is secured, all of these earthen creatures will crumble to dust and the mission will be over. So, with the scenario set up and explained, let's jump into the first turn. So far, in turn 1, what happened? The Pharaoh's Outrider started the turn by casting Arcane Shield onto himself in the strategic phase to improve his armor class by 4 and ignore critical hits. This was followed by the Academy Expeditioner, who also used a run action. And now both can see the golem, but the golem is unable to see them. And this got me into a question, because according to the reactive card of the golem, he will only react if he is the target of a ranged spell attack. But to react, model can only react if it has a line of sight towards the model, which in this scenario, because of the darkness rule, the golem has only 6 inches, and both of the Pharaoh's Outrider and the Academy Expeditioner stayed outside of these 6 inches of the golem. Therefore, if I would play according to the rules, the golem would be able to react to an attack of the Academy Expeditioner, and in general he would not activate in the scenario. So therefore, since I think this wouldn't be much fun, I rule that every creature, every hostile that is attacked is allowed to make an agility roll, or a roll at its awareness, in this case 6, to react to the attack nevertheless, even if it doesn't have a line of sight. And once the creature has attacked, it is allowed to make another agility roll at the start of its activation, or in an active roll, just to ignore the rule of dark environment, because otherwise the Sand Kingdoms are, at least in my interpretation, would be able to just stay out of the awareness of the constructs and snipe them away. And this will actually make a pretty boring game, not only to watch but also for myself. Therefore, I will rule that they are allowed to use an agility roll or an awareness roll to ignore the darkness rule for the action or reaction. So, since I explained all of this, let's get into an actual attack. The Academy Expeditioner wants, since he can see he sees the golem, he wants to cast his Soul Crush spell at it. The golem rolls to see if he can react to it. With a roll of 3, he is able to react because he has an agility of 6. Therefore, he will spend one of his actions in his reacting roll, and according to his reaction hostile card, target of a range attack, dodge, and move towards the attacker. So, let's see if he's able to dodge with an agility of 6 or less. He managed to dodge the attack, would have the Expeditioner hit. With a 5 he would have actually hit the golem, but the golem managed to dodge, and therefore the golem is able to, looking at its speed stat of 3, move 3 inches closer. And with this, the golem is actually within line of sight of the Pharaoh's Outrider and the Academy Expeditioner. So, with this action happened, next the Taskmaster Explorer will activate. She will move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, getting a bit closer. With her agility of 12, she's also able to see the golem and therefore to react. But this time, she just wants to prepare her two teammates in case the golem attacks and survives. Therefore, she will cast the redirect damage spell at the Pharaoh's Outrider. She has an intelligence of 14, therefore needing 14 or less. It's a 30, but since the darkness rule says that every action above half of the model's awareness suffers a -3 modifier, we will just check, but the Pharaoh's Outrider is within 3 inches, therefore she will not suffer a -3, and the 13 is actually enough to cast the redirect damage spell at the Pharaoh's Outrider. Together with his Arcane Shield spell, he's pretty protected right now, which lets me think that the Pharaoh's Outrider will... let me think again. I first thought it would be interesting if he attacks, but he has no way to reduce or even ignore the armor of 8 of the golem, and the golem has 3 hit points. Therefore, that would be a tough cookie to crack. And because of this, I think that the Pharaoh's Outrider will use his action to prepare for a counterattack or his reactive roll. And he will do so by casting Melting Touch or Spectral Blade. He will cast Spectral Blade onto himself, or at least he will try, because the construct trait all of the opposing models have in this game ignores the burn rule. Therefore, this would be a total waste. But he is maybe able to stagger the golem. To cast the Spectral Blade, both of these spells actually ignore the armor, so only the second effect would be interesting. He casts Spectral Blade onto himself, or at least he tries. He has some intelligence of 30, therefore 13 or less. And with a roll of 11, he manages to cast Spectral Blade onto himself. So currently he is quite enhanced, with 3 enhancement spells onto him. And next, the last action in this case. Yeah, the golem will not react. I just double checked. The golem will not react because he will only react if he's a target of an attack. But now, the Taskmage Explorer, she also wants to attempt an attack at the golem with her Mana Burst spell. And the Mana Burst spell has a strike value of 1. But since this time the golem is more than half her awareness away, she suffers a -3, therefore only an 11 or less will hit the golem. And the golem has an awareness check to see if he can evade. But first let's see if the Taskmage Explorer is actually able to hit the golem. With a roll of 7, she is able to hit. Let me just grab another dice. Is the golem allowed to try and dodge the attack? With a 14, he's not. So, the Mana Burst spell has the stagger roll 2, but since this will be the end of the turn, it does not matter. And it has a power equal to the intelligence, therefore it is a power of 14, reduced by the armor of 8 of the golem. A 6 or less is needed to wound the golem. With a roll of 2, the Taskmage Explorer actually managed to wound the golem. I did not expect that, to be honest, but that's it. So, let's just remove the activation token. And with all of this, the first turn of the party finished. There's no activation left. Let me just prepare the first turn of the hostiles. The first turn of the hostile. I moved the first gargoyle from its starting position with its 2 activation tokens up to this point, since the quest mission states that each gargoyle will use only a walk action until it sees an opponent. And for the second gargoyle, I only spent so far 1 activation token, because since my intersection is about 3 inches, yeah, 3.5 inches wide, I thought, okay, where will be the point that the gargoyle will, yeah, start moving into the intersection? And I decided it will at least walk into the middle. And then I checked if it's when it's actually in the middle, after it has moved about 3 inches. It is actually able, with its awareness of 8, to just see, it isn't shown really well here, but it is able to just see the Pharaoh's Outrider. So I decided that the gargoyle will spend its second activation point, move towards the point where I put the dice as a token, and now it will stop its activation and see the Pharaoh's Outrider. So now, moving on to the golem. If the golem is within 3 inches, which he's currently not, but he has line of sight, he will run towards the Pharaoh's Outrider as the closest enemy model, as it is stated at its hostile card target priority. So, with this, the golem will activate and will run towards the Pharaoh's Outrider. The Pharaoh's Outrider will react by attacking the golem as soon as the creature is within 1 inch. Before that, the Academy Expeditioner wants to react too by attacking the golem with another Soul Crush spell attempt. And the Taskmage Explorer, who's also able to see the golem, will react with also an attack, and she will use the Mana Burst attack. So, starting with the Academy Expeditioner, who tries to cast a Soul Crush spell, and since the golem still is about 5 inches away, he will suffer -3, therefore needing an 11 or less. And with a 4, he actually managed to cast the Soul Crush spell. So, since the Soul Crush spell also ignores armor, he needs now a 14 or less to wound the golem. With a roll of 19, he fails to do so. Now, the Taskmage Explorer once again tries to attack the golem. She also suffers a -3, therefore she needs an 11 or less. With a roll of 80, she's unable to attack the golem. the golem will run until it is more or less 1 inch away of the Pharaoh's Outrider, who will now attack with his sword, which is enchanted with the ethereal blade spell. But since he is attacking or defending, since it's his reactive roll, he needs an 11 or less. And with a 14 he missed his attack and the golem gets into melee. So let me just grab some markers to show that these two have the engaged state. So now the golem will use its second activation to use its Fists of Stone to make a melee attack, of which the Pharaoh's Outrider will react with an attack of his own to make a confrontation out of this, and the other two will not actually react because they do not want to risk the friendly fire rule and hit the Pharaoh's Outrider, who's quite protected right now since the redirect damage spell is active and his arcane shield spell. So, just grabbing another dice. We will start. The Pharaoh's Outrider in his reactive roll has only one attack, despite he usually having a strike value of 2. But now, in his reactive roll only 1, and he sets the lower bar. With a natural 1, that's not high, and actually if the golem, who has an offense of 10, now needs to roll between 2 and 10, or at least a 2 and 10 or less. And with a 10 and an 11, the 11 is a normal miss, but the 10 is a hit. But I'm unsure right now if the critical in the confrontation will have any effect, so I will just read up and I will catch you as soon as I have made up my mind about this situation. So after a quick look in the rules, the confrontation section itself does not say anything, but right before it is the critical hit section. And the critical hit section says a critical hit beats all opponents' confrontation roll results. So therefore, the natural 1 of the Pharaoh's Outrider will also beat the 10, which would be normally have been a hit, of the golem. And with this, the Pharaoh's Outrider wins the confrontation. And the Ethereal Blade spell is, at least its effect about ignoring armor, is further supported by the critical hit, who also ignores armor. So the Pharaoh's Outrider has power equal to its toughness, and the Pharaoh's Outrider's toughness is 13. Therefore, a 13 or less to put another wound at the golem. And with the 4, he managed to do so. And with this, the golem has only 1 wound left. So, the other golem, since according to the rules I just said, will make an accuracy check of 6 or less. Yes, he rolled a 5, and therefore he's able to ignore the normal scenario rules, since I think this will be more interesting. And he will just move 3 inches towards the closest enemy. I think this route will be shorter than this one. Actually, let me just check roughly. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 16. And this will be 6, 12, yeah. Because of the Task Mage Explorer, this will actually be closer, so therefore he will start to run with his first action. So here he is, and now making another agility roll, awareness roll. With a 7 or above, he's not able to react because his agility is 6, therefore unable to spend his second activation. I will still keep the rule that the Colossus, as some sort of boss monster or creature, will stay in his chamber, and therefore it will react as soon as anyone enters the chamber. So, just to make things more interesting. With this, all the hostiles have activated. Let me just prepare the second turn of the party. In their second turn, the party decided that in the strategy phase, the Pharaoh's Outrider will use his Artificer class to cast Ethereal Blade once again onto himself to ignore the Golem's armor in case he managed to win a confrontation. But to ensure him, since now he has not the protection of the Arcane Armor spell, the Taskmage Explorer actually will start first by trying to cast Redirect Damage once more at the Ferrous Outrider. She needs a 14 or less, and with a roll of 8, she managed to give the Ferrous Outrider a little bit more protection. And now the Ferrous Outrider will activate next. And let me just repair the tunnel. And he will attack the Golem, who will react by attacking the Ferrous Outrider in return. So we have another confrontation. This time the Golem has a defense of 13, therefore a 13 or less, to have a viable result to set the lower bar. With a roll of 10, that's a pretty good roll, because now the Ferrous Outrider has to roll between 10 and his offense value of 14. Therefore, only 4 results will be able to hit the Golem. And he rolls a 4 and a 1, as previously the 1 will negate any other confrontation roll, but the 4 will still be blocked by the Golem. And with this, the Ferrous Outrider managed to score at least 1 hit, who once again ignores the armor, not only because of the Ethereal Blade, but also because of the critical hit. He now again needs a 13 or less to wound, and with a roll of 2, the Golem gets the 3rd wound. And since he has the construct trait, as soon as he reaches 0 hit point, the model will be removed from the board. So let me just clean up, and I will catch you as soon as I finish the cleaning. I not only cleaned the board, but I also checked something and thought about the next move of the party. And as you can see, the dice, where I put the dice, this would allow a model to be within 5 inches of the gargoyle, which would be enough for the Academy Expeditioner to not receive a penalty of -3 to his rolls, and to reach there, he's also in range of his 5 inches of movement. So, but since, as you can see here, the Ferrous Outrider is currently blocking the movement, the Ferrous Outrider will activate next again and use 5 inches of his movement, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to just stay in the way of any hostile, since he will keep the redirect damage spell of the Taskmage Explorer until the next strategic phase, or until it is triggered. And now the Academy Expeditioner will activate. He will move within 5 inches of the gargoyle and cast the Soul Crush spell. But since this time the gargoyle is also within its awareness, it is allowed to react. Looking at the hostile card in its reactive role, just let me turn it around, the gargoyle will use the dodge action because it is a target of attack and within line of sight and outside of 0 inches. So, with this, let me see. The gargoyle, as we can here see, has an agility of 8, therefore 8 or less is needed. Just let me put the his second activation next to him. 8 or less for the gargoyle to dodge. With a roll of 6, the gargoyle will dodge the attack, so I will just skip. At least now, there is, if he rolls a critical, he will still be able to hit, as far as I remember. But with a 10, that is not the case. And now the gargoyle is allowed to move 2.5 inches, which will not be enough to be to attack the Ferrous Outrider. But since it is within 1 inch of the Ferrous Outrider, it will get the engaged token because the Ferrous Outrider has a sword with a reach of 1. So, since the gargoyle still is not in base-to-base contact with the Ferrous Outrider, the teammates of the Ferrous Outrider currently do not suffer the penalty for friendly fire, and therefore do not risk to hit the Ferrous Outrider. So the Taskmage Explorer tries to do the same trick again, and the gargoyle reacts with the same, So, the gargoyle, agility of 8, therefore 8 or less to dodge, and with a roll of 7 it also managed to dodge the second attack, and with a 4 it is no critical hit, therefore the gargoyle it will normally, with the target priority of activated model, try to engage now the Taskmaster Explorer, but in this case I will just say, since there is no room to do so, since the Pharaoh's Outrider blocks thus, it will just get into base contact with the Pharaoh's Outrider, who will now also have the engage state. So, and with this, the party has only one activation left, and this will be the Taskmaster Explorer, who will use her activation to move 5 inches a little bit closer to the happening. And let me have a look at her spells. She could try the Confuse Target spell, but structures or constructs are immune to the mind game state. Haste and Recovery is a buff for the party, so she's unable to do anything meaningful, but just in case she tries to cast redirect damage onto herself. You never know what might happen. And with a 19 she failed, but she will just use her wizard class to reroll her spell. And now with a 10 she managed to cast the spell successfully with her once turn reroll, and now the Pharaoh's Outrider and herself have the redirect damage spell. Now let me prepare the second turn for the hostiles, and I will see you then. The hostiles' second activation started by the second gargoyle just moving from the chamber with its first movement with its second movement here. So it spanned 2 activations. But now, since it has an agility of 8 and therefore an awareness of 8, let me just put in the measures. The first Outrider is within 8 inches, barely, but enough, that the gargoyle will start to activate normal in its next turn. So, and with this, before we get into combat, I will just check the first time for the golem, 6 or less, if he's able to ignore the darkness rule. He rolled in a 6, so once again, running towards the opponent. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This was its first activation. It's getting close. And now, second attempt. And with a 17, it is unable to activate a second time. Now, the gargoyle will attack the Pharaoh's Outrider, who will react with an attack on his own to make a confrontation out of this. The gargoyle has 2 attacks with its gargoyle claws, needing 12 or less to hit. But first let me see if the Pharaoh's Outrider, with his defense of 11, is able to set a lower bar. He rolls a 16, fails to set a lower bar, so the gargoyle only needs a 12 or less to hit. An 18 and an 8, 1 hit, but since he has the redirect damage spell onto him, this will activate because this was not a critical hit, and the gargoyle will actually hit itself. So, with its toughness of 12 minus its armor of 5, with a 7 or less, the gargoyle will actually wound itself and destroy itself in this turn, and the 12 failed to do so. So, with its second activation and the last activation for the hostiles this turn, the Pharaoh's Outrider will try a new confrontation, and this time the Taskmaster Explorer also wants to react, because she wants to cast another redirect damage spell onto the Pharaoh's Outrider. With a roll of 9, she's able to do so, potentially protect the Pharaoh's Outrider against damage except of critical hits. But for the confrontation, Pharaoh's Outrider rolls, set the lower bar at 11. So the gargoyle needs critical hits or a 12 or higher, or 12. And with the 18 or 19, the gargoyle fails to hit anything. And since it is not the next strategic phase of the party, the Ethereal Blade spell is still active, and therefore the Pharaoh's Outrider ignores the gargoyle's armor, and now he only needs a 13 or less to destroy the gargoyle. With a roll of 14, he did not manage to do so. And let me clean up and onto the third round of the party. In the party's third strategic phase, the Pharaoh's Outrider once again casts Ethereal Blade onto himself using his Artificer class, just to ignore armor and hopefully destroy the gargoyle he's engaged with, and open up an opportunity for the Academy Expeditioner to destroy the second gargoyle farther to the left. But before all of this, the Task Mage will move a little bit, and she will cast, once again, redirect damage to protect the Pharaoh's Outrider, needing a 14 or less. With a roll of 8, the Pharaoh's Outrider is protected by a redirect damage spell, and now feeling quite safe, he will attack and the gargoyle react with an attack each. The gargoyle sets the bar. Yeah, it might be cocked, but I will rule this as a 5. Therefore, 6 to 14. A natural 1 who will beat all rolls, and therefore the 18 is nevertheless a miss. But again, 1 hit for the Pharaoh's Outrider, needing a 13 or less, and a natural 20. While the Pharaoh's Outrider is quite constant in hitting his opponents, he's unable to wound them. This might become a problem further down the line, since now he has to spend his second action and the gargoyle will use its second reaction, and we will just repeat this procedure in the confrontation. The gargoyle sets the lower bar at 7, therefore 8 to 14 to hit the gargoyle. As 7 and a 9, the 7 will be cancelled by the gargoyle, but the 9 will hit, and another attempt, 13 or less, and this time it's a 5. Now the Pharaoh's Outrider managed to put a single wound onto the gargoyle and wound it, which will automatically destroy it because of the construct trait. So now the Pharaoh's Outrider is still sort of the way for the Academy Expeditioner, but he's able to activate 1, 2, who will now activate to get a little bit closer. In the idle case, he would be able to get within 5 inches, but looking at here, this will not be possible, so one way or another he will have the -3 modifier for his attempt, and with this he can also, if he is within 10 inches actually, let me just quickly check if he's even able to see the gargoyle, but this is the case, he's within 9 inches I would say, yeah, somewhere between 9 and 10. So he's able to see the gargoyle, but he gets a -3 penalty. The gargoyle does not see the Academy Expeditioner, but let me just check his awareness. With a roll of 4, the gargoyle is allowed to react, so therefore the gargoyle will try to dodge. With a 5, the gargoyle will dodge. Does the Academy Expeditioner rolls 1? No, a 4. But since the gargoyle managed to succeed at its dodge roll, it will, dodge successfully and move 3 inches closer, or 2.5, sorry. 1, 2.5. Here it is. And now it is still without 5 inches, but the Task Mage 2 and 3 would be here. Will activate and move 2 inches down and 3 inches forward. So he will actually be in front of the Pharaoh's Outrider, but with this he is within 5 inches of the gargoyle. And now he will try again a Soul Crush spell at the gargoyle. The gargoyle will also react. The gargoyle tries to dodge. With a natural 20 it misses. It was unable to. The Academy Expeditioner 14 or less. And natural 1. So he hits the gargoyle, and now needing a 14 or less to destroy the creature, he rolls a 4, and with this his risk pays off and the gargoyle is destroyed. Now, looking at the tunnels, the golem in the back, most likely with its movement of 3, will be unable to catch the party. So more or less it comes down to the boss monster of the Colossus. I will just, let me have a look. The Taskmate Explorer will just move a little bit up to her teammates with 1 activation. And I think she will do nothing more. And that's the third turn. Let me just, position, or not position, but let me put down the activation points, and then I'll meet you in the hostile third turn. On to the next turn of the hostiles. It's the first attempt of the golem to see if it is allowed to ignore the dark environment rule and to activate as normal. And natural 20, that was its first attempt, and this might be a quick turn for the hostiles. Second attempt, 6 or less, with a roll of 3. It is allowed to move according to my modified rule for this quest. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. The golem moves first here, and it moves a run action. Another one, 1, 2. So, and with its awareness of 6, it is just outside of the Taskmaster Explorer, but the whole party is able to see the golem, and therefore will be able to react accordingly, and spoiler alert, they will just move away from the golem. So let me put down the activation tokens and get on to the party's next turn. So in the party's turn, the Pharaoh's Outrider decided to cast, since he had only seen the golem behind them and no enemy in front of them. The dedicated tank of the party decided to cast Arcane Shield onto himself once more, and next the whole party used each the first activation to use the run action to move farther into down the tunnels, and this caused the Pharaoh's Outrider to be within 10 inches of his 12 agility, so awareness of 12, and is able to see the Colossus without the Colossus seeing the Pharaoh's Outrider. So now the party has to decide, will they try to attack the Colossus this turn or in its next turn, since as soon as they enter the chamber, the Colossus will activate, or, as I ruled it, as soon they are within its awareness of 6 inches. With this, the party carefully sneaks a little bit closer, I think. 6 inches is up to here, so the Pharaoh's Outrider will move up to here. The Expeditioner moves up to here, or actually he will move up to here. The Taskmaster Explorer will move up here, spending their remaining activation token and finishing their turn. Well, now the enemies quite far apart, and the golem at the far right. I actually don't think that it will matter anymore, but we will see. So let me just put down the activation token for the hostile's turn. With the Colossus still unable to see the party, it will not act in this turn. But let us see if the golem will be allowed to act. First, awareness check. It's an 18, so therefore the golem is not allowed. Second attempt and second activation point. I did not see it, so let's just reroll it. It's a 9, therefore it is also above its agility and awareness of 6. The golem is unable to activate, so I will just turn around the activation token and move on to the party's next turn. So I prepared what might become the last activation and last turn of the game, because I measured some distances, as you can see here. The idea that I will try to do with the party is, first of all, the Academy Expeditioner is sort of the way. He will just move a little bit back. Then the Pharaoh's Outrider moves a little bit out of the way too, and casts the enchantment Hasten onto the Taskmaster Explorer, which allow her to make a normal move outside of her activation, so 5 inches up to here. Then the Taskmaster Explorer can activate and move or run 10 inches up to here. And from there, she can use her second activation to move into contact with the artifact and use the interact action to secure the artifact and lets the Colossus as well as the golem crumble to dust, which will be quite anticlimactic but it will win the game. And just to ensure here, these are 6 inches and 4 more. Sorry, I put the die a little bit too far ahead, but nevertheless, it will be enough for the Taskmaster Explorer to reach the object of the scenario object. And the Colossus will only react originally when it's target of a range attack or of a melee attack within or outside of 1 inch. So, yeah. Let's first of all get into the strategic phase of the party. And if this goes wrong, the Forest Outrider will have to do something about the Colossus. So he will cast the Arcane Shield spell onto himself using his Artificer class in the strategic phase. Next, the Academic Expeditioner will activate, and he will move 1, 2, 3, 4 inches back. 3 inches is enough to make plenty of room for the Taskmaster Explorer. Next, the Ferrous Outrider will activate, moving into the awareness of the Colossus. 1, 2, 3, 4. But still within 6 inches of the Taskmaster Explorer to not receive a -4 penalty, -3 penalty to his casting attempt. After his movement, he will try to cast the Hasten enchantment onto his teammate, the Taskmaster Explorer. Intelligence of 13, 13 or less. With a roll of 4, he was able to cast the spell 5 inches up to where the dice is. Hasten. Next, as I mentioned, the Taskmaster Explorer will spend activation to move her 10 inches, 6 into this direction, 4 more here, and all of this will be outside of the reach of 1 of the Colossus. And now, with her second activation, she will move into contact with the artifact and spend her activation to use the interaction, and all the remaining hostiles, including the golem at the far end and the Colossus into what might have been an interesting boss fight, crumble to dust. Therefore, the party wins with no damage taken, and to be honest, this is a mission similar to the first one that can be cheesed if you have a strong range party as the Sand Kingdoms are. And as you have just seen, the boss room, while it is 12 inches wide, and it is theoretically, at least with the current set of the Coalition of Thenion, the Hellion League, the Sand Kingdoms, and the Empire of Soga, there's no way to get through the room of 12 inches without the Hastened enchantment. And as you have just seen, with the Hastened enchantment, the Taskmaster Explorer was easily able to just grab the artifact and completely skip the boss fight with the Colossus, which might have actually taken down 1 or 2 of the parties, and would be a real pain to avoid or to take down. So, therefore I would say that this quest definitely needs some adjustment, as you just saw. Without my adjustments about here, when the first gargoyle just moved here and the golem just stayed there. Originally, the other golem would just have been stayed at his intersection, wouldn't have moved at all. And again, as in the first one, I was able to just pick out one after another. So I think I would still, if I had to rework this, I would have done something to the enemies. Maybe 1 or 2 or another golem here, just to guard and completely ensure that this end boss cannot be skipped with hasten spell. Okay, What are you thinking about this mission? Put your ideas and maybe your feedback and what you thought about my ruling about the awareness check to let the enemy be a little bit more active. Put it down in the comments and I'll see you for the next game.